Hello everyone and welcome back to another DC miniature game battle report. It's been a little while since we've done one of these because the game isn't that popular. It's got a very niche but dedicated fan base. So we've returned to it, first time in 2020. Doing a custom mission that in no way is based off of a mission in another franchise's miniature game at all, which we'll get into in a second once we look at the teams, but as we go on. Please do remember to subscribe if you want to see more battle reports in the future for this and all the other games that we cover here, as well as painting videos and unboxings and reviews and all the good stuff. And if you want to go above and beyond, in the description box below there'll be a link to Patreon, which covers both the support for this tabletop channel and also the 6 nights a week gaming live stream that I do over on Twitch. So with that, let's get on with looking at the teams. So these are the villainous cohorts that are attacking the heroes today. We have Black Adam, we have General Zod, we have Black Manta, and I'm going to steal the joke that I already made on Twitter, but what is this pose that Night Models has put him in? It looks like he's dancing to its Raining Men. And then probably the most popular villain in all of DC, well known, everybody, even people who don't know DC, know this guy. It's of course the LexCorp Heavy Trooper, all shall bow before him, even Darkseid. And outnumbering them by 1, here is the hero team. We have two kind of stragglers, although I guess Hawkman kind of counts because of his pants, but essentially we have Team Green. So we have Green Arrow, that's the TV show version, we've got Green Lantern, there, and we have the Swamp Thing, there, and then honorary member Hawkman because of his pants, and then Katana is also there, just because there was that much room. I believe both teams add up to 49 out of 50 power, or maybe it was 48, either way there was no way to fit anybody else in. So let's get the custom mission set up. It's super simple, don't worry, it's not one of those overly complicated missions people have a habit of making, but we'll get into that in a moment. So the battlefield is all set up, however, because Hawkman is on the field, you have to roll for his reincarnation to see what bonus he gets for the entirety of the game, so we're going to do that now. It's a 1, okay, let's check his card. So for the whole of the game he has +1 power, that's actually really good. Alright. We'll keep that in mind rather. So as you can see, the heroes deployed up to here, 6-inch line, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and then Swamp Thing, Hawkman, and Katana over there. The gist of it is that we're going to call this custom mission places of power. There's little beads that represent 3 places of power. You hold those, majority. Well, sorry, for each one you hold, you get a victory point. If you have the majority, you get a victory point. For every enemy incapacitated, you get a victory point. So it's like most of the rulebook scenarios for DC miniature games. However, the twist, from turn 2 onwards, the dice is rolled at the start of a turn. If you roll equal to or under the turn time, whoever is losing gets to place a new place of power, as long as it's more than 6 inches away from a current one. So turn 2, roll if it's a 2 or a 1, and oh no, so I guess if it's a draw victory points wise, just a roll off. That only happens once, so eventually there will be a 4th place of power placed by the loser to give them a better chance of winning. Another thing to cover is the villain deployment. LexCorp Heavy Trooper is obviously going to go straight for that. Then we have Zod and Black Manta kind of in the middle, could go either way. Black Adam by himself up here, and that is it. So now we need to decide who's going first, and then we'll be back with the first activation. Apologies for not showing the pull out of the bag with the dice to see who goes first. Forgot to do it at the time and then forgot after actually pulling the dice, but the villains are going first, and it's a very nondescript first turn. The Heavy LexCorp Trooper, he spent 3 power to fly from where he started to the far side of this place of power, and then he has like 14 maximum range, which is not quite enough to take a shot down the table, so he's banking 4 power. He does have a once per game reactionary buff to his defense, which might come into play, but he's obviously claiming that place of power to get things started. Now it's over to the heroes. Katana activated first for the heroes, spent 2 to move 9, because she's fast, up to this place of power, and she's basically just camping it. Both sides pretty much using their weakest characters just to sit on the backline objectives, hoping they don't have to do anything. She's banking a massive 5 power because she doesn't have the range to attack anyone else. General Zod activated from where he was standing. He flew for 3 power all the way into the middle place of power. He spent 3 because there was a stone there, or a boulder, more so, it's not a stone, it was about that size. He picked it up and he threw it at Katana. If nothing else, Katana is at least agile. She's got agility 10, so she was able to dodge it, and that means she took no damage from it. If it hit her, it would have knocked her down as well, but she didn't even need to buff her defense or anything because it was just an agility test. She's slightly out of range for heat vision, so Zod has banked 4 power, and that's it. Next up was Green Arrow. He moved forwards 8 or 9, can't remember now, for 2 power. Then he fired a taser arrow at LexCorp Heavy Trooper, did 2 damage to him. Then, rather than try and overload anything, he just shot 2 standard arrows, which would have done 1 damage each if they'd managed to get through his rather paltry 14 physical. But neither did, so just 2 straight up damage, and that is it. And he's banking no power. He used it all. So apologies if you can hear the rain outside. It is a massive storm out there today. Anyway, Black Manta was the next person to activate. He spent 2 to move up, I think, 9. To actually put him like roughly there. He then used his once per action pounce for 1 more power, which gives him 4 inches of move, and it does say move, not displace, so you can do that as well as a movement action. As weird as that sounds. So he's right next to Zod, basically just so he's within capture range of that as well, to give them majority should anybody try and get right next to it. He banked 5 power, that's a lot of power, but there was nothing else he could do from that range. So after Black Manta, the next activation was Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern. He flew for 3, all the way over there. Now, he has a power, it's called, what is it called? Blunt Instrument. And it costs 3 power to activate, and then the description of it says you can do a free grab and throw on a enemy or scenery piece. But it's not free, because you paid the exact same cost of what it normally costs to throw a bit of scenery, which is 3 power. So, how does that make sense? That also reminded me to show you something in a second, but what I think it means, and it's just a mistranslation, is that it's a throw at range. You don't have to be in base to base, so although he's in base to base with this scenery, the blunt instrument, he uses his ring power to grab a person or scenery within 6 inches and throws them as if he was strength 4, which means 8 inches, because normally he's just normal human strength or maybe 1 above. So the rock that was there, he used his ring to pick that up and chuck it directly at Zod with nothing else in the way. Zod failed his agility roll, so he took 3 damage and got knocked down. With that done, Green Lantern banked 3 power with nothing left to do. He has a couple of defensive powers he can do. We'll talk more about a really interesting once per turn trait he has when he gets a good chance to use it. That wasn't a good chance there. First though, just as a personal aside, I complained directly to Night Models about this on Twitter. No reply, obviously, but from the Legion of Doom box for the DC miniature game, there's 2 new cards, one for a new 52 Joker and the other for Cheetah. This is the condition the card came in, but that's not the thing I'm complaining about, believe it or not, because this is just sloppy. The thing I'm complaining about is the appalling English for the descriptions of her powers, especially Superior Smell. I mean, I know they delayed the 3rd edition Batman starter box because of quote-unquote production issues. I think it's based on the poor English on the cards they previewed, and they were like, we've got to do this or it's going to be dead on arrival. But this is unacceptable. That is Google Translate level. No, that's an insult to Google Translate. That is an insult to Google Translate. That's how bad that translation is. Just appalling. Anyway, sorry for the aside, but it really made me annoyed when I read that. Back over to the villains. So it was going to be Black Adam next, however the villains do have 1 pass for the heroes having +1 miniature. So Hawkman activated, and all he did was fly over here behind the tree, banking 5 power in total. I think he has like one of his physical attacks is range 4, but that's not enough to catch Zod even if he's on the ground. So he's just banking a bunch of power and going there. Black Adam has to go now, and then it's Swamp Thing to end the turn. For 3 power, Black Adam has flown down the table to there, then he used the power of Aton on Green Lantern there, overloaded it, so he was spending I think 4 power in total, and it's mystic damage, so you can't buff your defense against that. It did 2 damage but also got the crit, so it became 3 damage on Green Lantern. He then just tried to fire a lightning bolt, which you're not allowed to overload, so it meant he banked 1 power. That however did not get through the energy defense, which Green Lantern spent a power to buff. So now it's just Swamp Thing himself to end off the first battle round. So Swamp Thing was the final activation for Battle Round 1 as just said, but where is he? Well, he spent 6 power, which is massive because he only has 10, to displace himself anywhere on the board, and he opted to displace himself right behind Heavy Lex Corp Trooper, who is very clearly the most dangerous threat on the board for the villains. He then overloaded a Altered Limbs to smack him. His physical defense was buffed, but it didn't matter. 2 damage got through. He's still perfectly fine, he's not even at half health yet, but a little bit of damage done, and more importantly, that's a contest on that place of power, but we'll cover that in the scoring in a second. So at the end of Battle Round 1, the heroes hold this place of power with Katana for 1 victory point. Zod and Black Manta hold the middle one for the villains for 1 victory point, and this one over here is contested, so that's 1 victory point each. No one has majority, so no victory points there. Nobody was knocked out and removed, so no victory points there. We need to roll, so I'm just going to do it. A 2 or a 1, a place of power appears. It's a 6, there's no place of power. spawning just yet. So all that remains to be seen is who is going first in Battle Round 2. This time we are remembering, it's been a while since we played a game that has the Bag of Destiny to decide whose fate it is to go first, given that the Batman 3rd edition got delayed. It is going to be the heroes going first in Battle Round 2. So to get Battle Round 2 started, Green Lantern was the first activation, and he knows that Kryptonians are dangerous even if they're knocked down, so he went hard on trying to do some damage to Zod, and he succeeded. From where he was standing, he spent his 3 power on his free grab and throw, and that also brought up the point, well, does the free mean that you don't need to roll for the hit if you're chucking a person? It might mean that. We still did it, that you had to roll to do a successful physical hit to grab a miniature even though he's grabbing them from range, so he picked Zod up with the power of his ring and threw him at Black Manta. It's strength -1 for the thing being thrown, so he counts his strength 4 for that attack, so it did 3 damage. Black Manta failed his agility roll and took 2 damage, and then from where he was standing he did, what is it called? He did a green blast, which is a penetrative 8-inch blast that ignores cover because it's got penetrate by default. He also used a free once per turn Force of Will, I think it's called, which means that you don't add on his attack when you roll the d8s. You add on his willpower instead, and he's like willpower 12 or something ridiculous like that. Basically guarantees the hit. Zod buffed his defense to negate the knockdown bonus, or penalty rather. Didn't make a difference, that was 3 more damage. Zod took 6 in total. That was really good. Black Adam is obviously still very dangerous as well, but Zod is the biggest threat, and now he is hurting. I think he is in his pale zone now. If not, then very close. Now see this is why Kryptonians are dangerous. Zod spent a power to stand up, spent 3 to fly right next to Katana, spent 3 to try and throw her, but it was going to be a miss, but I was going to say the Kryptonians, but no, Zod and his 2 helpers have the Martial Pride passive, where once you roll to hit, if it looks like you're going to miss, you can then choose to overload it. You don't have to wait or do it before the roll. So he added that on. Totally forgot that at the start of every turn Katana is supposed to pick a buff, and one of which is better physical defense, but with Martial Pride it wouldn't have made a difference. So anyway, he picked her up, could have thrown her away from the objective, but he's very angry, so threw her at Green Lantern. She takes strength -1 damage, so she took a massive 5 damage. That's why Kryptonians are dangerous. Green Lantern failed his evade roll. Because she's a smaller frame, like human-sized objects in the rulebook count as 1 or 2 damage. We counted Zod as 2 damage. She's obviously much smaller frame, so 1 damage to Green Lantern. Zod is also 1 away from his pale zone, just to clear that up. So, that hurt a lot. Over to the heroes. So we're staying over this end of the table because Katana's going to go down swinging. That 1 hit put her in her pale zone, incidentally. Not in her blue zone, in her pale zone, but it will mean she's doing a KO check at the end of the turn. She spent 1 power to move back into base to base with Zod, and then spent everything else she had, which was 5 in total I think, to do her once per game attack, the Soul Cleave, I think it's called. What is it called? It's Cleave, but she's using her Soul Taker Katana, and overloading it as well, and it's Mystic, so Zod couldn't buff his defense against it. She got through, did 3 damage, that's him in his pale zone, so he'll be doing a KO check at the end of the turn as well. But she is not long for this world because she only has, 5 HP left? Yeah, that's not a lot. 1 more throw from Zod will kill her. Anyway, back over to the villains. Black Adam activated, he flew down here, and then he unleashed his once per game final lightning, which is an explosive nova around him for 3 inches, in case you're wondering why he didn't just land there to save points rather than fly all the way over there. He didn't want to catch Zod in the explosion because it does a lot of damage. As you can see, because it did full damage to Green Lantern, which is 5, so he's in his pale zone as well, and Katana dodged, so it's halved and rounded down, so it only did 2 damage to her. Very, very painful. Green Lantern's this, well, maybe Swamp Thing's stronger than him, I'm not sure, but he's hurting now. Back over to the heroes. Finally over a different end of the table now, Swamp Thing activated, he picked up and threw the heavy LexCorp Trooper against the side of the wall there. He is strength 5, not strength 6 like Kryptonians, so it was 4 damage. Then he overloaded in Mystic Damage Magical Limbs at that distance. Oh, also to try and counter the grab attempt, his once per game energy field to buff his physical defense by 2 was used, but it wasn't enough. The Magical Limb, however, rolled very poorly, 2-2-1 on the overloaded extra die, and did nothing as a result. He is banking 2 power, and that is it. Oh, and the heavy LexCorp Trooper is in his pale zone. So the LexCorp Trooper, also perhaps sensing an inevitable end coming soon, opted to not shoot at Swamp Thing because Swamp Thing just keeps coming back. So he fired 2 of his laser cannons at Green Arrow, one of which was overloaded into all the power he had left over. but he got very lucky and both got through for 3 damage each, so Green Arrow has taken 6 damage in total, and that has put him in his pale zone. There's going to be so many KO checks at the end of his turn. Speaking of which, it's either Black Manta now, or he can actually afford a pass if he wants to. So it'll either be him, or either Green Arrow or Hawkman. So Black Manta did indeed pass, so Green Arrow activated from where he was standing. He activated Serrated Ammo, which is his once per game for free skill he can use, which improves his standard arrow damage by 1. He also used Multi-Shot, which means his range on standard arrows gets reduced by 4, but the cost reduces by 1 as well, making it a 1 cost power. He also spent 3 to fire an explosive arrow at the Elect Scrub Trooper. That did 3, leaving him on 1 or 2 HP. He then fired a bunch of standard arrows, just plinking away at the armour with like death by 1,000 cuts, and did a total of 6 damage all said and done, which was more than enough. Poor old LexCorp Heavy Trooper is dead, and that's 1 victory point to the heroes at the end of the turn. Black Manta now, however, has to activate. So Black Manta spent just 1 to move up to 5. He has to obviously be within 4 of that, but still, he moved there just so he was within range to use his once per game Death Ray from his I-beams on poor Katana, and did exactly enough to kill her, 4 damage. So Katana is gone. If she'd been able to buff her defense, she might have lived. Yeah, she would have. Either way though, she is gone, evening things up, and now it's Hawkman to end off battle round 2. Hawkman had a real quick turn. He just used 2 to fly up into base to base with Black Manta, overloaded a throw attempt for 4 power in total to try and just chuck him out of range of the objective, and Black Manta spent his 1 power left to buff his physical defense and was able to evade the grab. Bringing us to the end of battle round 2 and the tallying of points. Oh, and a bunch of knockout checks as well. So at the end of battle round 2, the heroes now claim this place of power up here. This middle one is contested, and this one down here is claimed by the villains. So that was 1 victory point each and no victory points for majority. Katana going down gives the villains 1 victory point, the Heavy Elect Scrub Trooper going down gives the heroes 1 victory point, and as you might have seen, Zod passed his KO check, his stamina, found out the negative to Green Lantern. His stamina is pathetically low, so he fell unconscious, and also sadly so did Green Arrow. So they are both knocked out as we go into battle round 3. Also, a 1, 2 or a 3 spawns an additional place of power, even though both teams are even, but it doesn't matter, because that was a 7. All that remains to be seen is who's going first, so it's going to be a quick one if people go down this turn as well. Let's see. It will be the villains going first in battle round 3. So General Zod got battle round 3 started. He spent 1 to move next to the unconscious Green Lantern, spent 3, then also Marshall prided it to make sure it landed, to throw him for a massive 5 damage. He is in his blue zone now. He's 2 away from death, I think. Yeah, 2 away from death. He tried to follow it up with a heat vision, but the heat vision whiffed spectacularly. So Green Lantern is technically alive. He is unconscious though, so if he wants to get a turn, he has to actually wake up, which is it's a bit risky. He's only got 7 stamina or something ridiculous like that. Anyway, we'll see what happens with the hero's first activation next. So anyway, Black Adam went next, and if you're saying, hang on a minute, wasn't it a hero activation? Well, Green Lantern tried to wake up. He needs to roll 7 or under on 2 d8s, and he rolled 9. So a missed attempt at an activation meant that Black Adam went just to finish the job. He actually missed with his lightning bolt, so he had to use the power of Eton, or whatever it's called, but he did 2 damage. That is exactly enough to splat poor Green Lantern, who I was going to call Green Arrow. Didn't even get to see his green Gatling once per game, where he makes a Gatling gun out of his willpower and blasts like Zod with it or something. That's nasty, and he is gone. Then he just spent 1 power to shift ever so slightly. He's banking 3, but they're just holding on to that place of power. Oof. Things are quickly taking a turn here. Green Arrow tried to activate and did not wake up. So Black Manta had to activate. He went next to Hawkman. He did a Joe Blade strike for 2 damage. He harpooned for another 2 damage, but it also critted, bringing total damage done to 3. Then he just tried to do a basic strike, which didn't get through his defense, and he banked 1 power. Pretty nasty. Hawkman was doing fine until that struck him. He's just above his pale zone now, I believe. And it's either him or Swamp Thing to activate next. In fact, both of them get to go because all the villains have activated. So Hawkman tried to do his once per game death from above on Black Manta, and it whiffed despite being mystic damage, because apparently, as it turns out, Black Manta has pretty decent mystic defense. So instead he opted to do an overloaded throw. He got it. He can't throw very far, only 6 inches, but he chucked Black Manta into the wall there. Strength -1, so he took just 2 damage, but more importantly, he is out of 4 inches of that objective. Now Swamp Thing technically has an activation, but he has to stay there to grab that place of power, so he's just going to sit there. So that is the end of the turn, and we're on to the recap. So then about round 3, things are looking dicey because obviously Green Lantern died, so that's 1 victory point to the villains. The villains got 1 victory point for this place of power. The heroes, however, got 1 for that one, 1 for that one, and 1 for majority. So they actually finally pulled ahead, despite suffering massive casualties. Also, as you saw, which I forgot to just say, General Zod finally succumbed to his wounds and is actually passed out. So there is that at the very least. So we're going into turn 4, so we need to see if a new place of power spawns. A new place of power does spawn, and it gets to be placed by the villains. It has to be more than 6 inches away from a current one though. So we'll show where that is at the start of the next turn. Doesn't affect working out who goes first though. It's more likely to be the heroes. Let's see. It is indeed the heroes going first in Battle Round 4. So to get Battle Round 4 started, Green Arrow tried to activate and once again did not wake up. So, over to the villains, Zod tried to wake up and he succeeded. He couldn't do much, he had limited power with having to lose 1 on waking up, 1 on standing up, etc. He spent 3 to fly all the way over here to where the new place of power has been placed, just out of 6 of that one. So he's now claiming that one. He's banked a massive 5 power because he couldn't really chuck that at anyone or anything. So the issue here is Green Arrow just refuses to wake up and Hawkman and Swamp Thing are pretty much stuck where they are. So some thinking is going to have to be done before the next activation. So after a bit of thinking, Swamp Thing decided to get in there. He spent 6 power to use the green to teleport wherever he likes. He popped up right next to Zod. With his remaining 4 power, he overloaded a throw. He threw Zod for 4 damage because it's strength -1 into Black Adam. Black Adam failed his agility roll and took 3 damage. More importantly, that does put General Zod, I almost said Baron Zemo there, General Zod into his blue zone. He passed his immediate stamina check, but he will have to do another one again at the end of the turn. He's very close to death. Oh, he also tried to buff his physical to avoid the throw, but that was a very good roll. So now, either Black Adam or Black Manta have to retaliate in some fashion. Black Manta activated, and from where he was standing, first of all, he threw a harpoon at Hawkman, and it hit him for 2 damage. And more annoyingly, it did ensnare 2, because the plan with Hawkman was that he was going to fly over and grab that place of power that Swamp Thing left. The ensnare might have lowered his movement enough that it's no longer possible. We'll need to double check that when he takes his turn in a second. Then, he moved up. He's been knocked. He should actually be in base to base, my bad. But he then did a dual blades attack for 2 more damage. He then just tried a basic strike, which used up the last of his energy, power I mean, and that whiffed. But all said and done, Hawkman took 4 damage. That's him in his pale zone, so he'll be doing a KO check at the end of the turn. So Ensnare 2 meant that Hawkman could only fly 10 inches instead of 12, but that was enough. So before he left, he overloaded an nth metal mace smack upside the head and did just 2 damage to Black Manta. That's actually technically important because it put him in his pale zone, so he's doing a KO check as well. Then he hopped over 10 inches, which is within 4, so he is claiming that because we've been saying the claim distance is 4. And that already takes us to the end of Battle Round 4, so we'll be back with the tally and KO checks. Sorry, absolutely does not, because Black Adam hadn't done anything. He was going to go after Swamp Thing, but he isn't going to be able to take Swamp Thing out in a turn, even if he does exceedingly well, because he doesn't have his explosion once per game. So he opted to fly over here. That's probably the best thinking, because if Black Manta does succumb to his wounds and fall unconscious, it means the villains are still claiming it. So, sorry, forgot he hadn't done anything. Now on to the recap. So that was very serendipitous of Black Adam, because Black Manta did indeed succumb to his wounds and has fallen unconscious. Zod and Hawkman, however, have stayed conscious, so good for them. In terms of places of power contested or owned, heroes have this one, and the new one that spawned down there for 2 victory points. Zod has this one because he didn't fall unconscious, and Black Adam is claiming that one, so that's 2. Nobody has majority, so that was 2 victory points claimed each, meaning that the heroes are still ahead by 1, I believe. But we need to see who's going first in the penultimate turn, unless things go horribly. Then it might be the last turn. It's the heroes going first, though, in Battle Round 5. So for Battle Round 5, Swamp Thing activated first, and he did an overloaded magic spikes from where he is, 6-inch range, into Zod for 3 damage, which was exactly enough to kill him. The Kryptonian has fallen for 1 victory point, and obviously he's no longer claiming that place of power. Nothing else for Swamp Thing to do. He doesn't want to teleport with the power of the green, so he's banking a massive 6 power, and it's over to the villains. So because it's going to dictate what Black Adam does with his turn, it was a case of whether or not Black Manta woke up. He did. It doesn't leave him much power though, so all he did was spend 1 to move around to basically hide behind that scenery but claim that place of power, banking 4 power, hiding so he doesn't die. See, Oliver, that's how you do it. That's how you wake up after being knocked out instead of staying unconscious for 3 bad word inserted here turns. Anyway, over to the heroes. This is really just a case now of the survivors trying to stay out of each other's ways. Hawkman activated, he just moved so he's safe over here, well, safe-ish from Black Adam. Hiding with that place of power, still not risking trying to get Green Arrow up yet. So, speaking of that though, it's Black Adam has to go now, and then we see whether or not Oliver gets to do anything. So both final activations have actually been done, but first we'll cover Black Adam actually, because then there's a little bit of a discussion thing going on. Black Adam went over here to claim this place of power. He shot the power of a Ton and a lightning bolt at Swamp Thing. The power got through for 3. Obviously Swamp Thing hasn't taken any damage thus far, plus he has regeneration 2, he's totally fine. The problem comes in that Green Arrow, for the final activation of the penultimate turn, he woke up, amazingly, and he has a once per game hook arrow where he's allowed to displace 12 inches away, and that's all the description says. It says displace this model within 12 of its current position or something, you know. It's the same wording as like the back claws, etc. Does that take into consideration scenery? Is the question. Because if it doesn't, because he's basically like using a hook arrow but then using a hook arrow, so he can displace himself over here to contest this place of power. If he has to go like around and like that, doing it diagonally, that also counts. However, if you're not allowed to go and then bend the tape measure, then obviously that isn't allowed. Also, if you're not allowed to go straight over all scenery, that wouldn't be allowed. So it just says displace the miniature within 12. So presumably that is allowed, and we're running it as such. If that's wrong, please point to the rulebook page, the new rulebook, the published book, not the digital version on the website that they still haven't updated, and let me know, because that's definitely a point of contention. So that's going to take us to the end of the recap, and I think it's basically going to mean an insurmountable lead for one side, but we'll see in a second. So at the end of Battle Royale 5, it was going to be cut and dry for a hero's victory right at the end there, but then Green Arrow gave into his wounds again and fell unconscious. Black Manta did not, and Hawkman did, and that's the bad one because he's no longer claiming that one up there. So looking at how a final turn would pan out, Black Adam, yeah, he could contest the one Swamp Thing is holding. He's not going to kill him because he's back up to only having lost 1 HP. If he had perfect damage and they were all crits, he still would not kill him, so there's no point doing that. So it's either like deny heroes 1 point or get your own point, which is countered by the one the hero is earning. Black Manta is going to hold that one unless Green Arrow gets up, in which case it's contested, so it's either +1 or neither team gets either. So the only thing that really matters to the points, even though it's still going to be a hero win regardless, thanks to killing Zod for a victory point, is whether or not Hawkman wakes up. So we're going to do the roll live. He has got a stamina of 9. He's so much better than Green Lantern's stamina. He got exactly 9, so he can indeed wake up and get a turn, so he's claiming that. So we're just going to call it there. With actually, well, we should probably check if Green Arrow gets up as well. What's his? His is 8, I think. His stamina is indeed 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, yes, he also woke up. So, we'll leave things as they are and just add on an imaginary final turns tally of score. So at what we're calling the end of the game, we did quickly do one combat because, yeah, Green Arrow woke up, however, he's not got a massive amount of HP, so Black Manta was able to kill him. Then that would make it wouldn't change the outcome of the match, but it would, however, give the villains an extra point just to save a bit more face. Did the rolling, Black Manta did not kill Green Arrow, too many greens. Didn't kill Green Arrow. Oliver is alive. So, in the imaginary final turn, contested, point to villains, point to hero, majority to hero. So, with that, it is 15 victory points to the heroes and 9 victory points to the villains. It's a great shame that Green Lantern didn't really get the chance to show off. Definitely found his Achilles heel. Once he gets in his pale zone, he's just... What was his... Hang on, I want to check. Stamina of 7. 7! And he's a 12, well, he is only a 12 power model, so I guess that kind of makes sense, because he's very powerful for only being 12 power, and that's because of that Achilles heel. You get him to pale zone, you get him doing those KO checks, he is going to fail them. I'm trying to, like, even Katana, I don't know, Katana's got the same, but Katana is also half his cost, literally half his cost. at 6 rather than 12. Oliver's got 8 stamina and he's only a 6 power miniature. The LexCorp Trooper has a 9 stamina and he's a 6 power. So yeah, that's how they balanced him. That's good to know going forward. Black Manta, he didn't really do much. He's got an okay amount of HP. He's got thermal vision. Oh, he has stealth. Didn't notice he had stealth. I don't think that mattered because he wasn't engaged at range. He was only engaged in close combat. But either way, he does have an interesting move that didn't come into play here either, called Provocation, I think, where he can force somebody to activate next. He has to be able to see them though, and they have to be within range. But yeah, he's kind of meh. Green Lantern I think is awesome, but has a massive downside that's very easy to exploit. Granted, he did go up against Black Adam and General Zod basically by himself because Katana was just there to claim objectives. Either way, yammering. I know there's not a huge following for the DC miniature game, but I think it's a nice way to break up the pace every so often, where it's just a miniature game of chucking each other in scenery. It's fun. It's dumb, it's basic, but it's fun. And it breaks up the other miniature games we cover here. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Please do show your support if you want to see more in the future. Let me know if there's a particular DC hero you'd like to see on the table, and we can try and make it happen in the future. Support via Patreon and whatnot helps as such. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the future. Ta for now.